it's important to you know, really record, you know, our stories and the events that occurred. I mean, it's been over 20 years now, but it's still very much alive in the family's minds. You know, it doesn't go away. It's certainly less than it was. He was a lieutenant in the fire department, and on that day he was called down to, you know, the towers.
Yeah.
And he was in charge of his group of men, and they actually were sent into the Marriott Hotel, which is World Trade Center 3. You know, it was the third building, and he was there evacuating people there, and then one of the towers fell on his building. So himself and his entire firehouse perished that day. And actually the entire 9th Battalion died that day. He was in the 9th Battalion, which is kind of midtown and down below, except one fireman actually survived. A year later, I got a piece of him back.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how that went. I have a couple of friends who never got anything back. Well, what really was shocking, I think, for most of us is when we got the death certificate. The cause of death listed homicide, and that was quite, you know, I mean, I think until that point, of course, you knew that your husband died, and you know it was an attack, but maybe in your mind you didn't use the word homicide. I think they did a good job with the memorial. I mean, I think the museum is done very well. I think you walk in and you feel what you should feel as you move through it. I mean, is it easy for the 9/11 families to go to the memorial? It's not really a place that I go. I've gone at least 2 or 3 times, but it's not something I go back to often. I think the fountains are pretty spectacular in the way that they, you know, have them laid out. I visited that more than I've gone into the museum again. I don't have a problem with the museum. I think, you know, there's some remains of families are there, and that's important. And I think that's, you know, it's a sacred site. And I mean, I have a friend who actually had some remains from her husband and actually brought them down there to be left there. It affects my family. Every year there's always a presence that, you know, is there. And I think it was a tragedy for this world. You know, it really, I always say it was like a scar on the, you know, on the face of humanity, how it went about and how we ended up responding to it. You know, originally we responded in a very, you know, it was very unified in this country, but then we kind of went to a place where we thought all Muslims were evil, you know, and then it went from there, and then we invaded a country. And so I think that, you know, we need to learn from these tragedies, and we have to be open to the story and to do better. Well, we can't, you know, paint broad strokes and eliminate an entire group of people and blame an entire group of people for the actions of few.